Hi everybody, let's take a look at the bracelet we're going to be making today. I'm calling it Window to Serenity as a play on where I received the beads from the Eureka Crystal Beads Serenity collection. And I wanted to give you a preview in the beginning before we even start the tutorial on what this bracelet looks like. And we got a little charm. We're using the symbol findings. So stay tuned for the ingredients to make this bracelet and the tutorial. I hope you like it. Hello everyone, I'm Michelle. Welcome to another video. Today we're going to be making, I think I'm going to call it a Window to the Future bracelet. And it's made with, I've got two different colors of Tilas, some 4mm fire polish beads, some 11/0 seed beads, 3mm bugle beads, a symbol finding for the ends. You don't have to have this, you can just use a regular clasp, but I'm going to use this, and I'm going to close it with a toggle clasp and a couple of jump rings. I'm using a size 11 beading needle, but a 10 would work, and I've got as much thread as I can comfortably handle with a stop bead with about a foot, about 12 inches of fire line tail, because we're going to need that to sew in our clasp. Sew in after, well, I'll explain it to you when we get there. Alright, so get your materials together, come back, and we'll get started. Alright, I'm going to need you kind of close up for a lot of this bracelet. So, I apologize if it looks too close up, but I've already tried to do this video once and got that bracelet halfway made. So what we're going to do this, you're going to have to slide in your bead, and you can't just go, you know, I tried. You have to do it this way, and you if you want to add, you know, we're going to add beads, and we can't do it if we slide it all the way up. So it's going to you're going to have your Tila. We're going to have our Tilas like this, and then we'll use that tail to fill in those gaps there with the bugle beads, probably a little bit later. That'll be with the tail at the end. Alright, so you have to slide in your Tila and then put your needle up through it, and then you have to slide in your next Tila and put your needle up through it like that for it to work, and then they're going to come out and lay like this. And pull it up to your stop bead. We'll sew that in real secure at the end. So we'll pick up, and we're going to call these the A color and these the B color Tilas. So we're going to pick up an A Tila and come down through that very first Tila, the right hole in that first Tila. And pull. Now we're not going to worry too much. We're going to try to keep them in place and as tight as we can, but you'll see here in a minute where we'll go back and reinforce, and it'll pull them all tight together, okay? And then we will pick up a B color Tila, and we will go down through the right hole of that next Tila down below. Okay, then we'll pick up an A colored Tila, we'll slide it down, I'm going to lay this down so you could see it. To attach this Tila, we're going to have to go back up through the bottom, the right hole of your finding, the left hole of the next Tila up, the right hole of your finding, the left hole of that next Tila above it. And for this part, you're going to have to do it all in one stroke, because you can't do it one at a time. Your needle won't go up, because these findings do not move. They don't bend. They don't allow your needle to maneuver. Alright, so we'll come up through that. Did you see that? We're putting this Tila on, so we had to come up through that very first row of beads. Alright, and that pulls that down, pulls that on, tight there. Then, I don't know if you can, I'm going to try to show you this. You have to do this a lot, so. Alright, then we're coming out of this hole with the finding. Here. We want to jump in that very next hole, that left hole of that Tila. And that whole row down through. You're coming through the left hole of that Tila, the right hole of the next, the left hole of the black Tila, the right hole of the next Tila, the left hole of that bottom Tila. And you're going to pull. Alright, and then we're going to come up through that bottom Tila. Now we're going to pick up a color B Tila, coming out of the right hole of that bottom Tila. We're just going to jump up into the right hole of that middle color B Tila. There. I'm going to pick up a color B Tila, coming out of that right hole of that middle Tila. We're going to jump up into the right hole of that top Tila. Okay. Now we're going to pick up a color A Tila, coming out of that right hole of that top Tila. We're going to jump down into the right hole of that first black color B Tila. There. We're just doing peyote, but they've got two holes, so we're going to work out of each hole. Alright, and like I said, when we have to add that every couple rows, we have to add a bead like we did this one, so that gives us a chance to go back up, reinforcing and pulling all these beads into line. Okay. Now we need fire polish bead. Come down through that right hole of that black, that color B Tila. Oops. Then we're going to pick up a color A Tila. We'll slide it down. Oops. All I did was slide that down there. Then we're going to go up the very next Tila beside it to attach it to, and just straight up through that previous row. see, we gotta get that and then that. Did you see that? I went straight up through that row. It's the previous row. We're just going back to reinforce, and we're adding this bottom bead, this bottom Tila on. Come on, get on there. Get them all these guys straight in the row. There we go. Then, just like we did before, we're coming out of that right hole, that first Tila there. We're just going to go down into that next hole. That next hole in that whole row, including the fire polish bead. Okay, and that is going to, see there, that whole row, and that's just going to pull them all into a position. And then we're coming out of the left hole of this Tila right here. We're going to go up into the right hole and get ready to put on our next row. Okay, I'm going to pick up the color B Tila. You're going to jump up into that fire polish bead, just the fire polish. I'm going to pick up another color B, and we're going to go up through that right hole of that top Tila. Okay. Now, like I said, these will all get pulled into line, into position here after the next row. They do bug me though. So just try to keep everything as straight as possible. So now we're going to pick up a color A Tila, coming out of the top of that top Tila there. We're going to come down through the right hole of that color B Tila. Oops, slid out of place to hold it in place. Okay, we're coming out of the color B Tila and pick up another color B Tila. And we're going to just hop into the right hole of that next color B Tila. It's the ones that are sticking out, you know, just like peyote. We're peyoting, and it's the ones normally it's sticking out. You can see, let me lay that down so you can see. Now we've got to add our bottom bead. This is, you know, every couple of rows, this is what we do, and then we'll get a chance to go back up through and tighten the beads up and align them. So we're coming out the left hole with that Tila we just picked up. We're going to come up through the right hole, the one right beside of it, that whole row, and go through the fire polish. Might have to do those fire polish separate. So we go up through the fire polish. Oops. And the rest of that row right there. And here we go again, coming out of that middle Tila there on the right. We're going to go right down through this hole, the hole right beside it, the one we're coming out of. Right. See that? And we're going to come down that whole row. And we're going to pull them in all into place. Look how neat they are now. Then we're going to jump up into the right hole of that same Tila and get ready to start our next row. Alright. Now we're going to pick up a color A. Coming out of this Tila, we're going to, because see, it's just like peyote, they're sticking up, right? We're going to go through the right hole of that sticking out peyote, or Tila. We're going to go pick up our next Tila. I'm going to coming out here in the black Tila. We will jump up into the right hole of that next sticking out Tila. Okay. We'll pick up a color A Tila. We're coming out the top here, or we're just going to jump down into the right hole of that next sticking out Tila. Now remember, here in a minute, we'll go up and reinforce and pull them together. And pick up another color A. And we'll go down through the right hole of that next sticking out Tila. I haven't done it yet. Right here. That next sticking out Tila. The right hole. Right there. Okay. Now we're at the bottom. And we have to pick up a color A. Bring it down. Oops, I picked it up, I think, on the wrong side. These Tilas are tricky. One side's just got a little tiny curve, little hump to it. We'll go up through that left hole, or that to the left, the right hole of that Tila, and all the way up through that row, and the holes that are connected with that row. It's just retracing your thread path up through there. If you can get all but one, just go ahead and do that. And then finish getting that one bead. These sometimes, you gotta put these where you want them. Make sure they go into place. Now, where am I at? We are. I just finished that row off. Finish securing that row. Now, just like before, coming out of the right hand side, that bead, just gonna jump to the very next hole, and the row the whole row. See there? See, and then when you pull all your beads, come together in a neat little pattern. Alright, so we're coming out of the left hole of this Tila at the bottom. We're just going to go up through the right side of that Tila in the right hole and get ready to start your next row. Alright, now we're going to pick up a color A. Go up through the right hole of that next sticking out Tila. And pick up another color A and go through the right hole of the next sticking out Tila. Alright, then we're going to pick up a color A. And we're going to come down. We're coming out the top. I'm going to come down the right hole of that next Tila. Sometimes you have to pull that back up there and hold it in place while you pull down on this when you're adding the one like that. And just keep them in place till you go back and reinforce them as best you can. And then we're going to pick up a color B Tila, and we're going to come down through the right hole of that next sticking out Tila. Okay, I'm going to pick up a color A, bring it down. Go. You're coming out the left side of that Tila. Move over to one hole, to the right hole of that next Tila over, and up through that whole row. That whole row of Tilas there. To add this one Tila and to reinforce. Come on, get up there where you belong. Come on. Alright. Alright. We're coming out of the top hole here of the second Tila over. We're just going to jump down into that very next hole and that whole row. Cool. There we go. Pull them all into place. And then come up through that right hole. Excuse me, that right hole. That bottom Tila. And that's what we have. Right there. Now we're going to pick up a color B Tila. Go through the right hole of the next sticking out Tila. Color B Tila. Come through the right hole of the next sticking out Tila. Now Pick up the color A, Tila, and while trying to hold this one in place, because we just added it, we're going to come down through the right hole that's sticking up Tila. Alright, now we're going to pick up a fire polish bead, come down through the right hole of that next sticking out Tila, and now it's time to pick up a color A Tila, slide it down, and go up through the right hole, the next Tila over, and that whole row. All the way up through. Alright. Make sure he's nice and straight. And we're coming out of the right hole of that Tila on the left. We're going to jump down into the left hole of that right Tila. And go down that row, including the fire polish. Okay. And that attaches everything, pulls everything together. You might have to coerce them a little. But there we go. And we're just going to go up through the bottom hole, the right hole, that same Tila. Make sure everybody's pulled down tight. And then we're going to add color B Tila. And go up through that fire polish bead. Color B Tila. Go up through that right hole, that next sticking out Tila. Okay, put him in place. That's what we have. And pick up a color A Tila. While holding this one in place, because we just added him. I'm going to go down through the right hole of that next sticking up Tila. Okay. And then we're going to pick up a color B Tila. We're going to come down through the right hole of the next sticking out Tila. And we're going to pick up a color A Tila. I don't know if it's Tila or Tila. If my knows, let me know. And we will slide it down. Come up through that very first hole in the next Tila. All the way up through. So we're going to have to go through the fire polish again. Fire polish. And then the rest of the row I got to pick up for this. There we go. then coming out of the right hole that left Tila on the left, I'm going to come down through that very next hole. Do you see it? Coming out right here. I'm going to go to that very next hole right there, and the row. My Tila was folded under, so that whole row, there we go. And then we'll come up through the hole on the right, that bottom Tila, and get ready to put our next row on. Now, it's just going to be, see the pattern? Here, we've got 2. We're going to fill that in with color A. Pick up the color A, go up through the right hole, the next sticking out Tila. Pick up the color A. Go through the right hole of the next sticking out Tila. Pick up the color A. Holding this in place, go through the right hole. On this, you're just going to turn around and come right back down. On that. Went through the right hole, that next sticking up Tila. I'm going to pick up the color A. Those, of course, is going to be sewed in. I'm going to go through the right hole, the next sticking up Tila. And see here, there's nowhere, we can't turn around because we haven't finished the row. That's how we know it's time to pick up our Tila, slide it down, and go to the left. And then go back through and sew in and secure our rows. Alright, I'm just trying to slide him down. Then I'm going to go to the left, up through that whole row. There we go. And then down to the right, coming out of this right hole, that Tila on the left, go down through the left hole, the Tila on the right, and the whole row beneath it. And there we go. Pull everybody in the line. Okay, and then come up through the right hole and get ready for your next row. Alright, now this row is going to be all color A's. What you're going to have to do, well, some people will probably have to go back and just, you know, watch this all over again. Yeah, it's pretty much the same. You know, just rewind the video or go back in the video. And what this is, the pattern just keeps repeating. So you'll go back and watch at least this last part and it, you know, and just keep doing it over and over and over again. Alright, so once you've made your length, I got a 7-inch wrist. I will probably make my length to about 6 1/4. I don't know. I'll be back. I'll let you know how many sections, because we don't want to end it. We can always add chain, extender chain on. We don't want to stop in the middle of one of our patterns. So it'll just be a blink of an eye. I'll be back to let you know how many sections I did. Okay? And then we'll do the next part. You wouldn't have to put anything on the sides of this. It'd be pretty all on its own. But I want to use the bugle beads and seed beads to make a little fringe on the sides. So, I'll be back. Alright, we've come down and we've made 8 of these units, because we're going to have to probably use a little extender chain, but if we make 9, that'll make it too long. So now we need to put on our other end, and so we just slide that right in there, and we're coming out of this hole at the top, the right hole of the Tila, and so we'll just come down through. I might have to pick it up. Let's see. We'll slide it on there, and it'll come down through. There we go. There we are. Now we need to reinforce, so we'll come down the top or the top of this first hole in this next row, and come down the whole row like that. And pull it up real snug. And then we will go back over into the first row we started with and come through all the beads again, making sure that you don't miss any. And pull snug, pull down, and then one more time come down through this second row. Alright, now we need to be coming, you need to work your way around somehow to be coming out of the hole on the right of that first Tila, the right hole of that first Tila. Let's see, coming out right there at the top, and we're going to pick up a 11/0 seed bead, a 4x6 millimeter Czech drop, and a 11/0 seed bead, like that. And you're coming out of that right hole, we're going to just needle down into the left hole. And this is very important, you just have to get that one Tila. I just bent the end of my needle. Alright, like that. And then we're going to come up through the right hole with the next Tila over, and do the same, and pick up an 11/0 drop and an 11/0. Oh, my needle is so bent. Let's see if I can get it there. Coming out on the right side, just needle down through the left side I'm going to try to use this needle to my advantage, the way it's bent already. But I don't know if it's going to work. There we go. Pull down, and then needle up through the right hole of the next Tila. Let me straighten my needle. Pick up an 11-0 and draw up an 11-0. Alright, we're coming out of that right hole of that Tila. We just want to needle down through the left. Hope you can see that. Okay, and then pop back up through the right hole of the next Tila. And do the same. 11-0, drop 11-0. Okay, and go down through the left hole, that Tila. That same Tila. And back up through the right hole of the next Tila. Right like that. Alright, so just go down this whole side, work your way over. You know, just come straight down through. Once you go down through that left hole, just come on down, and you'll be coming out of the perfect side of the, you know, the right hole to be start down your next side. Alright, so when you get down, I'll put the last couple on with you, and then we'll sew off and put our clasp on. Okay, here we are at the last drop. I really like that a lot better with the fringes. Okay. Isn't that pretty? It's not so plain. I love drops, they're my favorite shapes. Alright, so we're coming out this last Tila, getting ready to put on our last drop. So let's pick up an 11-0, a drop, and 11-0. Okay, and we're coming out the left side of that hole, the left side of that Tila, the left hole. We're going to go down through the right hole, and we'll just keep coming down. If I can get down through with this needle of mine. There we go, and make sure that drop is sitting right. Okay, and then we'll come up through that 11-0 seed bead, and I'm going to tie a half-hitch knot. So I'm going to go underneath that thread that's in between the 11-0 and the drop after. I just came through that 11-0, so it's right after the 11-0 is where we're going to pull that knot down, and then we're going to pull it in through that drop bead, and then we'll come down that 11-0 after, and then what we'll do is we'll just come right back up into that 11-0 right beside of the one we came down. Let's see. Let me see if I can zoom it. See the 11-0 right? It's kind of blurry, I don't know why. The 11-0 right beside. And come up that. And that's where we're going to tie every knot, is right after the first 11-0 in each group of 3 beads. Pull that knot down. Come through that drop, and that pulls that knot up into that drop. And we'll come down the next 11-0. And we'll go up the 11-0 right beside of it. Let me see. And then that's where we'll tie our next knot, half-hitch knot, go between the 11-0 you're coming out of and the drop, pull your knot down, and then go through that drop and 11-0. Alright, so go down your bracelet, doing a few more of the half-hitch knots, and look how nice and neat it pulls those. Here, let me try to zoom back out. Oops. It pulls those 11-0s very neatly in a row. So go down through, tie in your knots. I don't know, tie about at least 10, and then sew in your tail thread. Now about the ends, I don't think I'm going to fill those in, because I tried with the little buckle beads. They aren't big enough. They just look ridiculous, and it shows the string, and I personally think they look fine just the way they are. So get all your ends tied in, your knots tied, and come back and we'll finish up with the clasp. Okay, I just wanted to stop in and tell you, on this end thread, make sure you pull it down tight, and then you go up through that next row of Tilas, like that, and then we'll go back up through this first row, alright, and then we will come up and since the thread's not real long and it's really secure to go switch directions, like go in a circle through these Tilas, just sew around, switching directions often with that tail thread. Alright, and come back and we'll do the clasp. Alright, I've got my piece of extender chain on a jump ring, and I'm going to add it over here with my, on the end that has my charm. And then I'm just going to grab it with my pliers, and I took this piece of chain off some of the jewelry that I showed in my friend mail videos and this jump ring that was attached, so I'm reusing those. So it might take me a minute to get this jump ring right because it was overlapping. There we go. No. Let me try a different jump ring. This one might be bent. It's alright, I tried to use it. I'm going to get a new one. Hook it to my chain. Now hook it to my finding here. Oops. I want it to be on a separate chain that my charm is, or a separate ring. Alright, so there's my extender. Now, all I have to do is open my jump ring and put on my clasp. You know, I think I'm going to use a bigger jump ring to connect that jump ring. Give me a second here to grab one. Let me get my other pair of pliers. I've got a sinus infection going on. If you can hear me breathe through my nose, I'm sorry. I just heard myself. Alright, and there's the clasp. Alright. So there is our window to Serenity bracelet.